This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's Family.
Well, the sun did come up in the Valley of the Sun on Monday morning, but it was a sad sunrise. The Phoenix Suns season is over. Mark McClune, Julia Lopez, Nick King, David Caltabiano. This is our Suns support group here to kind of break things down and, I guess, go through things. Feel free to cry if you need any tissues. Lady and gentlemen, what in the world did we witness on Sunday night in downtown Phoenix? Dave, we're going to start with you.
Oh, my gosh. There's a lot of pressure. I mean, it was a gut punch. It was a franchise-defining moment. We've turned into the Cleveland of the West before they won a championship. And it's hard to know where we go from here. The excitement, everything that we've experienced for the past 2 years, it felt like destiny that we were going to win the championship this year. And to get outplayed like that, to get outcoached, to lose in that fashion, yeah, I don't know. It felt like the worst breakup I've ever had.
And how many breakups is that? Are we scoring at home?
You know, I've gone through 2 breakups. One was for the better. The other was definitely for the better. But this one felt like a breakup from the Suns team that I thought I knew. The group of guys who I thought deserved the championship. You know, we had this special relationship. Suns fans, we went wild for the past 2 years. We got loud in the Footprint Center. And last night, it was like a blindside. It was like, hey, this isn't working out. We're not going to be the team that you knew for the past 2 years. We're not going to try for you. We're not going to answer your phone calls, your text messages. And we're going to lose by 33 points, which is the equivalent to maybe getting your number blocked. That's the only thing I could equate it to.
And 33 is not even tell the story of how bad it was. Can you take us through what it looked like in the Caltabiano household watching the game?
Well, by the second quarter, I opened up a bottle of red wine. I was almost in the fetal position looking at the score. And when it was 27, when I saw the stat line that Luka Doncic had as many points as our Phoenix Suns, 27, you know, again, this team was unrecognizable. And then last night I was as well. The Phoenix Suns fan and myself, I was just so distraught and upset. I was hunched over, like almost doing the thinker, but actually just my hand over
the
my
drinker,
mouth.
not the thinker. The drinker, yes.
And to go on and on, you know, I don't want to. But let's just say it got silent quick.
That's why we brought you up here, though, because for folks who don't know, you've watched the Extra Point, you've seen Caltabiano's Corner. I don't know if is there a more passionate Suns fan in the Valley than David Caltabiano in your two opinions?
Yeah. Have you seen Twitter? They're all over the place. They are letting the Suns have it on Twitter.
Right.
It is among the elite, though.
Yeah.
It is. So, Nick, let's talk about your breakups now. When it comes
timing.
to when it comes to the Suns, how does this compare to? Okay, we'll scrap that. How much did this suck, in your opinion?
I just couldn't believe it. And in retrospect, the writing was kind of on the wall the last couple of weeks. But to me, the thing about this team was that they were a bunch of alpha dudes that Monty Williams liked to talk about them being sore losers. They never lost 3 games in a row all season. They only lost 2 in a row like 5 times all year. They were the best clutch team the NBA's seen in decades. And in the most pressure-packed moment of the season, a Game 7, everyone was a no-show, and that was just unfathomable for this group specifically.
Yeah, I've seen this maybe a couple times, just head-scratchers. I mean, in sports, going back to Texas lost to UCLA one time, 66-3. And I was thinking, I really didn't think I was good enough to play at the University of Texas, but I could have done that. Julia, you know, you got here. The Suns are rolling. I'm sorry that it all came crashing down like this. Just as you were sitting there, that was a big day. I mean, that was our first Game 7 that I'd ever been to. What was it like driving home last night? I felt like I did something wrong.
Well, I will say that I had to go to the station, so I didn't have to go home right after the game. But it was brutal. I left, with about 8 minutes left in the fourth. Everybody that was at the Footprint Center
didn't even beat traffic.
Already left. I know. I was running into traffic. Yeah, I should have left a little bit earlier for sure. But after the third quarter, fans were getting up and leaving, and just lines going up the stairs, getting out of there because they had enough. And I just feel bad for the fans. Obviously, you want them to vent, kind of like David did. You want them to, have that time. But I also want to tell Suns fans that this core is really strong. They're young. They're talented. You have one of the best coaches in the NBA leading your team. They're going to figure it out next year, and I'm just here to tell you guys it's going to be okay.
Can we talk about the coaching though?
Jason Kidd was the coach of the year in that series, hands down. And I think taking Cam Payne and JaVale McGee off the floor, those were your two energy guys that gave you a lift when things didn't start well, and not being able to stick Cam Payne in there. And I mean, Richard Jefferson said last Sunday in Game 4 on TV, somebody get that baby out of the road. He was getting eaten alive on defense. But Monty, the way that he stuck with Chris Paul, it was kind of stunning that he just kind of pulled the plug on something that was a button to kind of ignite the team. Your thoughts on the coaching, Coach Caltabiano?
I was supremely disappointed in the lack of adjustments from Monty Williams. In Game 6, Jason Kidd showed you his hand, what he wanted to do to beat our Suns, to force us to 7. He said, hey, you know what? We're going to double-team Booker. We're going to blitz the guy that has the ball in the pick and roll every time. And he did it again in Game 7. Devin Booker got double-teamed. He got trapped on every single pick and roll. And I was surprised that, we know how great Luka Doncic is. We know he's a great passer. But we did nothing to make the game harder on him. We didn't throw any double-team looks at him.
Aiden was on him half the time. I think I know why Aiden was so upset. He was trying to guard Luka.
He's a great guy. He's going to get his points. He's going to get his assists. But you got to do something to switch it up and make the game harder for a guy like Luka Doncic. And we did nothing to make the game harder for him. We didn't throw any looks. They had 5 wide out. They did their pick and roll. They got the matchups they wanted. And I was disappointed that Monty Williams, again, did nothing to make the game harder. He did nothing to alleviate the pressure that Devin Booker, that Chris Paul was seeing. On top of these guys getting outplayed, Monty Williams got outcoached tenfold in this series, and that's how we ended up in a Game 7 in the first place.
But how much of Monty's approach, Nick, interested with your thoughts, is Chris watches as much film as we do. He's already said that. Chris being out there is a coach on the floor, the Hayes in the barn. Chris will figure this thing out.
Yeah, you wonder. I know people were calling, not just Patrick Beverley, saying that Monty should have sat Chris Paul down if he was going to be that much of a liability. Can you imagine him actually sitting down Chris Paul, the future Hall of Famer, though? Like, that wasn't going to happen. But finding a different way to alleviate the burden on Chris Paul, offensively and defensively, is probably the issue. I thought it was interesting. I'm pretty sure definitely Devin Booker, maybe Paul too, after the game, were talking about, the Mavs had a good game plan and they did this. And to David's point, like, it looked a lot like Game 6, and that was kind of dumbfounding to hear them talk about it being a good game plan that they clearly weren't prepared for or ready to adjust to or attack differently in Game 7.
Well, and you think about Luka Doncic here. I mean, Julia, and actually, let's just go down the line, but let's start with you. Did we see the emergence of a superstar? They poked the bear. They poked the bear in Game 5, and we saw Devin Booker. I mean, he took the ball away from him. Luka was upset, and we all heard what he said walking off the floor. Is Luka? Would it surprise you if Luka does not end up holding the championship trophy at the end of the year?
I think it's going to be the Warriors. I think the Warriors are going to beat them. I just think they're just a better team all around. And I know that we would have loved to see the Suns Warriors. I think we were all hoping for that.
Yes.
And
Since December.
Yeah, we were all hoping for it. But I don't think Luka can make it all the way by himself. Like, obviously he does have, good supporting cast. But NBA Finals, I don't think so. I don't see it happening. But can we also mention Chris Paul? There's reports saying that he had a quad injury.
Yeah.
Do we know if that's facts?
I mean, he's had so many injuries in the playoffs, and he always denies it in front of the media, and then J.J. Redick gets the information. I mean, that's what happened with the hand injury in the playoffs, which, I mean, I get it but you look at that news conference last night, and they weren't going to say anything about anything. They just wanted to finish it up. Paul, I mean, he hit 37. Did he hit an expiration date here? I mean, what should we expect out of 38-year-old Chris Paul and 39-year-old Chris Paul?
It's unbelievable. So this is what I've been working on for tonight. So I've got a long sheet of numbers and notes here in front of me. The first 8 games of the playoffs, and the Suns had the second longest streak in postseason history of shooting 50% as a team. Chris Paul was fantastic in all but one of those games. and he was averaging 22.6 points on about 15 shot attempts, 10 assists, 1.6 turnovers.
Have you been charting that, by the way?
Yes.
The entire.
No,
I love
today.
I love Nick King's stats. That fires me up.
So those are the first 8 games. Then the last 5 games, the Suns don't shoot 50% as a team even once. And his scoring drops from 22.6 to 9.4. The shot attempts go from 14.9 to 7.2. The assists from 9.9 to 5.8. And the turnovers jump from 1.6 to 3.6. And that was all after he turned 37. I mean, it has to be an injury. There is no other explanation for him being that bad after being that good. 2 of those games, he had more turnovers than assists, which you never see from Chris Paul. And to the point of the injuries, when you look at, there were really 3 last postseason where he's got the shoulder against the Lakers. It was the wrist and the hand at some point in the Western Conference Finals or NBA Finals. Combine that with injuries in 2018, 16, and 15, and then now the quad. That's 7 injuries in the last 8 postseasons for him. And so, yeah, you look at his age. I mean, to some extent, you can say bad luck, but it sure has to scare the hell out of you if you're the Suns moving forward. Right.
And as much as we want to point that out, I do want to say Chris Paul has been nothing short but fantastic. I mean, he has brought Suns basketball back. So before we bag on him for being old and say he's got one foot in the grave and
he was
he's
incredible.
washed up.
And a week and a half ago, I was texting my friend back on the East Coast about how much my appreciation for and admiration for Chris Paul has grown just exponentially watching him in person for 2 years. Because he's a guy that most of his career just kind of drove me nuts with his theatrics.
Right.
Watching him from afar, but I mean, the effect that he had on the Suns the last 2 years is undeniable. It's just like what happened.
Right, and that's what we're all trying to sort out. I mean, Dave, have you hit 37 yet?
No.
What are you?
I think you guys are me disappointed for this scalding hot. I'm 29.
29.
I feel like I'm 45 on the court, so I have no room.
Well,
to
you had
talk about Chris
you said
Paul.
you had a good Euro step the other day. Is that right?
I tore my ACL on a Euro step a number of years ago, so that should show you the type of shape and athleticism I was in. So I don't want to bag on Chris Paul too much. Obviously, the guy's a Hall of Fame player. We know what he's done for this franchise, but we have to be honest with ourselves. The book is out on Chris Paul. Ever since the finals last year, they figured out, hey, we press this guy full court, we wear him down, we don't let him get it set up in the offense, and it takes him out of the game completely. What do the Pelicans do this year? They put Jose Alvarado on him full court. They wore him out, couldn't set up the offensive zone. What did the Mavericks do? Frank Ntilikina, who we never see this year, gets playing time for one reason, and that's to hassle Chris Paul.
Right.
The wear and tear, these scrappy young guys who gives him problems. The book is out, and 37-year-old Chris Paul, if he's going to be tasked with playing 30 minutes a game, is not a recipe for the Suns to get to the finals. Last year proved that when we were up 2-0. This year proved that in the second round we were up 2-0. Unfortunately, we have to start thinking about the future, and that if with Chris Paul under contract with this much minutes, he's going to have to play 20, 25 minutes a game, and we have to have a younger guard that can step up in those moments that doesn't have that much wear and tear and that we can rely on. But that's going to enter into another part of this conversation, which is the future of this franchise.
It would be nice to go get, if we talked about Remy Martin perhaps, or somebody that he could mentor, but I don't know if you can just stick in a young point guard and expect the same kind of production that Chris Paul brings to the Phoenix Suns. Campaign, bad series.
Again, what happened?
Can we be
Gosh,
blunt?
I love that guy.
Can we be blunt real quick on Chris Paul?
Yeah.
He choked. He choked. He disappeared for the past 5 games.
Yeah.
Point God, as we all called him, myself included. We all marveled over what he did last series.
Kobe would never let that happen. Right? Maybe later in his career, when he tore his Achilles against Dallas, maybe this is what we're seeing as guys get older. With Steve Nash later in his career, he would flash once every couple games, but sustaining it and going head-to-head with 25-year-old, 29-year-olds, it's hard. When you hit 37, you guys will all find out.
Yeah. Well, this guy was known for being the passionate bulldog point guard that was going to go neck and neck with you. What did we see last night? We saw a guy that was fine with getting blown out. We saw a guy that was fine with not doing anything for the past 5 games. And then last year in the finals, game 3, He dropped the ball, literally. He got it snatched from Drew Holiday.
Right.
This is a guy that's legacy has now been stained from what we've seen the past 5 series when he's been up 2-0. He's lost every single one of them.
I mean, the legacy question is certainly there. And you
I
just
think
think about
I think that
everybody's
wear
watching.
down effect is there's something to that too. I mean, Monty mentioned it last night and then again today about feeling like he rode Chris and Book too much, and probably Chris especially. But he also missed like a good chunk of the second half of the regular season with that injury, which should have helped. But I think, yeah, you mentioned 20 to 25 minutes. When Chris Paul is healthy, he wants to play and has played 30-plus, bordering on 35 minutes a game.
And the game plan all year is to get to the fourth quarter and let the point God take over. I mean, he's not – how many times this year did he not score in the first quarter? Julia, do you have that stat?
No, I don't.
But
Maybe
I mean,
Nick does on this
right.
paper.
It's somewhere. That's a beautiful mind, Nick.
Yeah.
As far as just all-time bummers, all-time, where does this rank for you, Julia?
Well, I'm not an Arizona fan like David, like lifelong.
Is that why the Warriors pick?
hardcore.
Is that why the Warriors pick? Where's Joe Ferris?
Might be coming in.
Yeah, he's got the Warriors hat on today. He helps on our show. All right, so
I just think it was obviously disappointing.
Yeah.
But I also believe in this team, and like from what I've seen and going to practice and listening to Monty and listening to Devin and listening to these guys, like they have it. Mikal Bridges, like you guys are in good hands.
Sorry, I disagree. I can't do it.
I don't know that it's a great story. It's been a great 3 years. Thank your lucky stars you didn't have to watch the 10 years that it was after Steve Nash, where you're just like, what? John Lure has 8 early points and the Suns are down 9. John Lure was a fine shooter, by the way. But it's been so great. And expectations. I mean, expectations in life with anything. When you have expectations, it changes everything. I don't know that we're going to be able to put that genie back in the bottle, and we're going to look back at that Suns run to the finals last year and just think of that as a very innocent and kind of golden era.
Expectations, man. This team was too good. They were so much better than anyone else in the regular season for them to be talking after the game about, hey, you want to have a shot at it. You want to be one of the 16 teams. We were there. Yeah, we fell short of our goal, but we were one of the last 8 teams. Like, that wasn't enough for this team.
That's NCAA tournament stuff. The program's headed in the right direction next year.
Yeah, that was bizarre. You mentioned the clutch stats, too, with Chris Paul in the fourth quarters. There was no opportunity for that because the 4 games they lost, they got blown out.
There were like 3 clutch minutes the entire series, and they were in game 1. This is from Chuck Cooperstein, the Mavericks play-by-play announcer, who I kind of fanboyed out at because I grew up in Dallas. I was like, Chuck! But so we talked. But so he said there were 3 clutch minutes the entire series, and they were at the end of game 1 when Luka went nuts and Dallas almost came back to win the whole thing. Which was this series wilder than the New Orleans series?
And it makes it, to me, it was like this wasn't a fluke. Like the Bucks series in the finals was close. It was one play here or there, and the Suns are NBA champions. There wasn't one play here or there in this series. The 4 losses were bad.
Right. And you think about how styles are everything in matchups, and the way that New Orleans and Phoenix dueled it out. It almost seemed like with Dallas, if they were hitting threes and they were getting the Suns to exchange threes for twos, it was going to be a long night because the Suns couldn't keep up with them from the three-point line. And then Jason Kidd wants 2 feet in the paint, drive and kick in Game 5. The Suns were turning them over. That's how that one got out of hand in a hurry. Are we concerned at all that the Suns have lost their mojo?
Absolutely. The window has closed.
Closed. Ho, 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 ho. Okay.
Are you kidding me?
A bold statement there by Call.
Let's look at the Western Conference. The Pelicans are going to be better next year. The Grizzlies are already here. The Mavericks are apparently better than us. We're another year older. And what are we going to...
And wiser. Older and wiser.
I mean, look at our roster top down. This was supposed to be the team that was going to win the finals. A loss like that puts everything into question. DeAndre Ayton, we were saying last, couple weeks ago, this is the guy, max contract
pay him.
player.
DeAndre, pay him.
Pay Ayton. Now we're saying, who can we get him for? A loss like that changes everything with this franchise. It was a franchise-defining moment for the worst, and it's a moment that we're going to have to look in the mirror and say, what's the quickest route back to the finals? Because clearly with this team, with this group of guys, losing like that and the way that we lost and what followed and the lack of accountability that took place, it's clear to me that the window has closed based off how good the Western Conference has gotten and how bad we just lost.
All right, so if you were to say trade DeAndre Ayton, what superstar could you bring in here to put like a stick in the window, keep it open? Superstar who can come in here and score, take some pressure off Chris Paul. How do you keep that? I don't think it's closed. I think the way the Suns were talking last night afterwards, what you mentioned with Paul and Devin Booker, they were trying to convince themselves that it was only one loss. And we're going to look at it like that, and we're going to move on. Because if you think about the enormity of it, it would crush you. I mean, mentally, it would be like, what would the broadcasting equivalent be of that? Say Super Bowl coverage, and you got out there with your microphone and got up to talk and just completely forgot what you were going to say.
Oh, I've got one, actually.
What do you got?
It was my first time that I was allowed to fill in as weekend sports anchor in Virginia. And I did my first show, and I was rushing to get out there, and my suit collar was turned up, and my IFB was hanging out. And I got a call from the news director, and he's like, "You're never going on TV again." And it was like, that was the shot. I'm never going to get it again.
First
It's
of all,
gone.
does video exist of the show? Can we watch it?
Man, I you know what's funny, too, is there was when I had to go back and look at the tape to try to watch it, they had the only version that I could find had the director and producer talking under it, and they were just bashing the hell out of me, which made it even worse.
Like, what were they saying? They weren't trying to help you out. They were like, "Look at his collar." You gonna tell him? No.
I don't remember what they were saying. I just remember feeling very uncomfortable listening to it and just wanted to go home.
Like Albert Brooks, like sweaty in broadcast
Yeah,
days.
great movie.
David, what was your worst moment in television?
Oh,
I like where this conversation's going.
I mean,
you have one, don't you?
I'm sure everybody does.
Go with Julia
We're all
first.
human.
I gotta think about this. I've tucked away the bad memories. Probably what I'll do for last night with a bottle of wine.
Another
Gotta
red.
make it red.
Gotta make it red. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to think about my bad TV moments.
It's good. It's good. Like, I got on TV one time. I forgot to comb my hair. I'd been wearing a hat all day, and I did an entire sportscast. And was like, I think that went okay. Oh my God! I didn't even look in the mirror. I just threw on makeup, and I went down and I had hat hair the entire time, like really bad hat hair.
Need people looking out for you in those situations.
Small market TV.
Yeah.
I, as you guys maybe think about your TV moments, I do think, to David's point, I don't know that the window is closed. I think this was the best opportunity far and away. Next year is going to be so much harder. The roster presumably will look different, but all those teams in the West, we kind of talked about after the finals, like, the Nuggets are going to get Jamal Murray back. The Clippers are going to get Kawhi Leonard back. Neither of those things happen. They happen next year now, too.
And then the Pelicans add Zion.
Yeah.
And not only that, but just think about the confidence factor. I think about the questions that are going to haunt this franchise for the next 2 to 3 months. Think about the drama that we thought that we survived with DeAndre Ayton all year. That's going to get amplified 10 times more. It's just there's things that hang around almost like a ghost when there's a bad loss like that. Like, people talk about the curse. It's kind of like that. It's like a bad energy in the air that lingers around. And that's why I think that, we're the Cleveland of the West. It's going to be hard to shake that. It's going to be hard to shake a loss like that. And the way that we lost, it was devastating to me.
I just don't get how they looked like that. The team that we had so much fun watching all year that was so much better than everyone else in the NBA. Like, you asked about losing their mojo. Like, how else do you describe it? Whatever they had, they lost in a bad way.
And ESPN came out with this great article about the pregame huddle and about a team unlike you've ever seen before. And it's like, this is what sports is supposed to represent. A group of guys come together for one common goal. And in a half, it was gone.
Yeah.
It was gone.
They had one heartbeat. I mean, that's what makes sports great when the sum of the parts don't equal the whole, or whatever the saying is, where you can rise up greater than you actually are because you love each other, because you're playing for each other. I think a lot of times when you don't nip something like Aiden's contract in the bud, it's always going to come back. And that became an issue when things weren't going well. And he's yelling at Monty that the ball wasn't going in the basket. All of a sudden, Chris Paul's hurt. And it's a combination of all those things at once. And all of a sudden, no one's having any fun. I think what was in the secret sauce for the Suns for the last 2 years is they were just having fun. It was fun showing up to work. And last night was absolutely no fun.
Yeah, but, real champions, they rise to the expectation, something we didn't have. We didn't have expectations the past 2 years. We didn't have expectations last year. Made it to the finals, almost won the whole thing. This year was the expectation. We were favorited in the Vegas books to win the finals.
That's the key to life. I have no expectations.
But we didn't rise to those expectations. We came as short as you can possibly get in a big-time game. And that's why I think it's the worst collapse in Arizona sports history. No game, moment, anything measures to what we witnessed last night in the way that we witnessed it. It snatched the soul of our sports history.
It's a very Arizona sports story.
Oh.
I've been here since 2006, and we've seen the Super Bowl with the Steelers scoring in the last minute. We've seen the 2015 NFC Championship game. We've seen Zach Greinke's debut in front of 50,000 people who thought, "Oh my goodness, we're going to win the World Series." It was opening day, and he went out and got shelled. You have the 2001 World Series here, but that's it. And, the Mercury won some titles, and so did the Rattlers. But that's it. I mean, Arizona State football, they're Charlie Brown that can't ever kick the football, it seems like. What do we have to look forward to is what I'm asking.
Arizona State softball could win.
Yes. Okay.
There you go.
All
They
right.
could win the whole thing.
Okay, so,
Now we're
or
talking.
what if Arizona State softball played GCU and then U of A in the Women's College World Series? How awesome would that be?
That would be great.
Do we know who's who we'd root for? Like what's best for the extra point?
ASU.
ASU.
Yeah.
we would want like it to go. Oh,
Yeah,
Resident
ASU.
Sun Devil.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll ask Gabriel about that. The resident Wildcat. Do we flush this? Do we talk about it more? Do we go back and say, I should have said this on this podcast? What is when people tell when you go out into the world and leave Phoenix this summer and go on vacation, and people are like, "Oh, you get to cover sports in Phoenix. What happened to your basketball team?" What are you going to tell them, Julia Lopez?
It was fun while it lasted, and looking forward to next year.
Such an optimist.
Yes.
I'll give you my only dose of optimism that I was thinking about today is the 2 seasons before the Bucks were champions. They were the best team in the regular season, and I believe by a wide margin as well, and then lost in the Eastern Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Semis. And that was like a blow the team up. What are we doing? This isn't working. The regular season's not translating to the playoffs type of thing. And that's when they bring in Drew Holiday. And I don't follow them closely enough to know exactly what happened, but maybe there is recognition now that what we were doing in the regular season is not translating to the postseason this year specifically. And maybe that leads to something next year. Maybe, David.
We need a big trade to take our mind off this awful, awful taste in our mouths. We need something to revitalize the fan base, something that says, hey, maybe this guy was the missing link to our championship run, something that could bring us that energy back in Phoenix. But until that happens, I think that we're going to be dwelling on this for a long time. I think if we're bringing back this same exact group of guys, we're going to look at ourselves like the Utah Jazz was and thinking to ourselves,
yeah.
The Utah Jazz, great regular season team, always got to the second round. And then they realized, too late, might I mention, that the nucleus of guys was not enough to win a title. So do we want to be the Utah Jazz or do we want to try to be something different, something fresh? And that takes risk. And I'm hoping it's a risk we take this offseason by trading DeAndre Ayton for somebody.
I saw a tweet today. It said, it's actually my tweet. I was just speculating, and all of a sudden it caught fire.
You're trying to bring Kevin Durant.
I'm trying because I want a Longhorn here. I mean, it's very far-fetched because he does have, I think, 4 more years on his contract, and he's making $40 million, and you'd have him and you'd have Chris Paul, both making $40 million. Would it be worth exploring? It would probably be, it would take an act of Congress to get Kevin Durant out of Brooklyn, but we have seen the NBA and the way guys change teams. If a guy wants out, he gets out.
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to understand the financials there of how that would happen, but yes, there have been roster constructions that I have understood less how it was possible financially that have happened.
I thought the trade machine was on the backside of that paper. Julia Lopez, how do you keep open the championship window?
How do you keep it open?
How do you keep it open? Dave says it's shut.
It's shut unless you make a trade, but it would have to be a pretty big-time trade.
I liked what you said earlier when it comes to having Chris Paul play just, a specific amount of time and also have a solid point guard to take over, give him breathing room, and be able to compete against those young guys, too. Because I love what Chris Paul brings to this team. Like, obviously, he brings the experience, and you do feel comfortable when he has the ball in his hands when it comes down to, crunch time. But, yeah, you got to have somebody that is able to compete. And I would like to see a young guy. Bring in a young guy. See what he can do.
All right. Dave, do you need any more red wine, by the way?
I got bottles and bottles.
All right.
Stocking up on this disappointment for a long time, being a Suns fan. So,
well, on that note.
Yeah.
Dang it.
This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's Family.